Hello learners, today we'll be continuing our chapter first of psychology, BA English Honors Psychology. Actually I have this as my optional, so I don't know if you have the same book in psychology main also. Anyways, this is BPCG 171 General Psychology, IGNOU, Indira Gandhi National Open University from School of Social Sciences. So we'll continue from the first chapter. The scope of psychology, what it is and what it is not. Psychology is an exciting field. It is at once familiar, exotic, surprising, and challenging. Of course, psychology is all this. Psychology is about each of us, and this is very absolutely true. Psychology is actually about all of us because psychology is the science that defines our behavior, and every living person behaves in some way or the other, interacts with its environment in some way or the other, and the way it interacts or the way it behaves with particular instances or things. This is what psychology is, or this is what is included in psychology apart from many things else. So it asks us to take a reflective attitude as we inquire. A reflective attitude means to look at what we are doing, or to look through what we have done or what someone has done, to go through it, that why this happened or why this was done. That is a reflective attitude. How can we step outside of ourselves to look objectively? That is to observe our attitude and then try to make some changes in it, or just to view it as to why this happened, as to why these consequences led to this. So how can we step outside of ourselves to look objectively at how we live, think, feel, and act? Psychologists believe the answer is through careful thought, observation, and inquiry. Now let's just skip this part. I think this is not very important. But if you want to read, I'll still advise that you go through the book completely. See, I'll be telling you the main things or main topics that are in the chapter. I don't think I'll be going through the complete book. But if you want me to go through the complete books, everything included, important or non-important, you can tell me in the comments. Anyway, psychology, like all academic disciplines, has its own concepts, such as intelligence, personality, stress learning. Just like any other subject has its concept, like social science has concept, latitudes and longitudes, right? Science has biology has subjects like stem, root, leaves. Physics has subjects like speed, motion, velocity, and chemistry has subjects like atoms, molecules. In the similar way, psychology also has its own academic its own concepts, such as intelligence, personality, stress, learning, memory, thinking, perception, and these are ultimately interesting concepts. Many of the concepts of psychology are already familiar to, like, we are actually familiar with almost all of them, though we don't know how to define them or how they actually work or act. See, it goes the same way with science. We all are familiar with velocity. When we try to move an object, we obviously require force, so we are also familiar with the object force, but we don't know how to define this force, or how this force acts, or how this force acts on different objects. In the same way, we are all familiar with stress, with personality, with intelligence, but we don't know how to define them, or how they work on different people, and how they affect different situations and different people, right? That is why it has been included in the subject psychology. So many of the concepts of psychology are familiar to you, but many of them are new, and some of them will be new too. The topics included in psychology are the nervous system, sensation and perception, learning and memory, intelligence, language and thinking, growth and development, motivation and emotion, and so on, just like this. The goals of psychology, like other sciences, are to describe, explain, predict, and control the phenomena it studies. So, what are its four goals? Its four goals are describe, explain, predict, and control. Repeat with me: describe, explain, predict, and control. So describe means describe a particular concept, like what is the definition of this concept, how do we define this concept. Then explain the concept, where does it work, where the concept is applied, how does it differ from other concept, or in what situations will it act like. Then predict that if this concept is applied to this situation, what would it lead to, or if the concept is applied to that situation, what would that situation eventually lead to. And then control the phenomena, and then control the concept to a particular level, and then to control the movements that the subject will do in the future, or the things that might happen if the concept is applied there, or if some certain situations are presented, then to control that situation eventually. This is why we use psychology. So psychology thus attempts to describe, explain, predict and control behavior and mental processes. And it is written here, the phenomena it studies. And obviously we already know what kind of phenomena it studies. It studies the phenomena of behavior and mental processes. Psychology as a science of behavior attempts to explain the why and how of behavior. It tries to explain why the other person or the other animal, the other thing is behaving in such a way, or how can we change its behavior, right? Seems similar like this. So the knowledge of psychology can also be applied to solve various problems facing human beings. This is very obvious, be it home, society, workplace or in the whole world. We often know that higher level of stress leads to less functioning or leads to uncoordinated functioning sometimes. The stress can even lead to death in certain instances. So we all face these kinds of problems. Stress is a very common problem. It's not like it's a very rare disease that some specific species face and we don't need to read about it. Like it's only like stress is only seen in monkeys, or stress is only seen in kangaroos. And since most of us won't be dealing with kangaroos or monkeys, so we don't need to read about stress. Obviously stress would happen to any of us and all of us. Besides stress, there is then sexual urges happen to all of us. Then we all go through different kinds of emotions. So it is very important to read about this concept, since they are eventually going to happen to all of us, and in fact have happened already to a very large extent to all of us, right? That is why it becomes a very important to understand, to read, to know about psychology. Okay, and see, as it is written, be it at home, workplace or in the whole world. So if you have stress, then it won't be like you won't be having that your stress will deny that I won't come under work circumstances, I can only come at home circumstances. Of course there can be some circumstances, but let's say that the A is a situation, right? Let's just say here that this situation A is what our A is nothing but our situation. It can be any situation: your father scolding you, your mother beating you, your girlfriend leaving you, your dog dying, or your very close relative or loved one going away from you. So it can be any random situation that causes you stress, right? Let A be any random situation that causes you stress. Now whenever A happens, or whenever A comes into your life, naturally stress will also follow it. See, so if you are sitting at your home, cozying around, just lying there relaxing, and suddenly the situation A comes to you at your home environment, then still it would lead to what? It would lead to stress. Okay, if you are at your workplace, doing your work normally, nothing unusual or nothing to be stressed about, and then suddenly situation A happens, then again it would lead to what? Lead to stress. Now you are, let's say, chilling in a pool somewhere, or out for holidays or something like that, and then situation A happens with you, and then again you would go into a condition of stress. So this is not place centric, right? This does not take into consideration which place you are in or what kind of environment you are in. What matters is situation. If the situation happens in the work environment, still it would lead to the same result. If it happens in the home environment, it would still lead to the same result. Or it happens in the in the chilling environment or holiday environment, it would still lead to the same conclusion, the same situation, the same conclusion in the end. It would lead to stress. So situation is directly related to the concept or the thing that is about to happen with it, or the emotion that you will go through, right? But so it is not environment centric, rather it is situation centric. So moving on, methods of psychology. There are various methods to study psychology. Now these are some methods through which we study psychology. Here we are going to discuss three major methods of psychological inquiry. But today, or here in this book, or in this chapter mainly, we'll be reading about three major methods of psychological inquiry. So first is experimental method, which is the backbone of almost every kind of study, be it every kind of scientific study, let's say. So experimental method, sorry. In this method, investigation starts with defining a research problem. So investigation starts with defining a research. It means with defining a problem that needs to be researched upon rather. So let's say that someone is facing situation or sorry problem. Let's say someone is facing the problem B. Now, what is problem B? For the convenience sake, I would tell you what problem B is. This is just an example, so you can take problem B to be anything. So problem B is what? Problem B is nervousness, right? Nervous. Sorry, I wrote the wrong spelling, but never mind. The main thing is that it's nervousness. So the situation is the problem is nervousness. Nervousness when confronted with 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 your crush, with your girlfriend, or with your boss. You can take any example. I'll write here with your boss. See, because most adults feel nervousness in front of their boss, so I've just taken this at boss. I'm not partial to anything. So nervousness when confronted with your boss. This is what? This is a problem, and when we go on to experiment upon this problem through in the field of psychology, we can call it research problem. So it means nothing but the problem that needs to be researched upon, right? So this is our research problem. Research problem is nervousness when confronted with your boss. Now moving on, with the help of available literature, appropriate hypothesis. Hypothesis is nothing but a statement referred to proposed explanation of an idea or expected outcome. So hypothesis is nothing but a kind of theory. To proposed explanation of an idea. It means that it is a statement that refers to the proposed explanation, right? I think I don't need to go in depth into it. It's very easy to understand in any case. So are generated. So appropriate hypotheses are generated as to why this situation might be happening or what could be the possible reasons behind it, some kind of basic theories. And we also take help from the available literature if there have been any previous instances as such where people felt nervous when confronted with their boss or something like that. So we would also take due advice or due cognizance from the available literature that we have. And then experiment. Finally, experiment is conducted to test proposed hypothesis. So we took help from the available literature that was available from us, and we saw that there were some instances previously too, and we just concluded all of them to form some particular hypothesis. Okay, so let's say this hypothesis is because the person fears losing his job. This is a very basic and a starting hypothesis. So let's say that the psychologist formed this hypothesis. For convenience sake, let us say that this is a very new problem. Such cases have been very rarely seen previously, or this is not a very common problem as it is in actuality. Let us just suppose that this is a very rare problem. It happens sometimes. So this is the first hypothesis that is formed. The person fears losing his job. So now the psychologist would do what? He would try to conduct some experiments that would either tell him that his hypothesis is true or it is wrong, right? He would do some experiments to validate it. Then experiment is conducted to test proposed hypothesis. The investigator manipulates an independent variable. Independent variable, it means the independent object on which the experiment is conducted. Variable is used here because it can be anything, like because the situation is not particularly defined to us. So situation can be anything. In accordance with it, the center of object can be anything. It could be an animal, right? It could be an animal, it could be a bird, or it could be a reptile, or a human being, right? Or a human being. That is why variable is used here, because we are not certain on what kind of creature or what kind of object this experiment is done upon, or which objects, which creatures problems are studied in a particular in this particular experiment, and studies its effect on dependent variables, and then it studies its effect on dependent variables. It means on the other variables that are dependent upon it. Like in the case of this, the dependent variables would be what? The dependent variable could be the boss, his family members, right? His friends, even his pets, and in very extreme cases they can even be his household insects, common insects, household insects, and other such creatures living inside his house. That would be in very extreme cases, but basically these can be the dependent variables. It means the action it means that the action of this person B, which comes under which feels very nervous when confronting his boss, his actions can lead to several implications on his boss or his family or his friends or pets. It means they would affect several distinct elements, and these are those elements. So the actions of this B person will affect the actions of several other people or several other elements. So these are the dependent variables on the experimental variable or on the independent variable that we are experimenting upon. The goal of an experiment is to investigate and explore facts and causes. Now moving ahead, I think we'll go through them just briefly. There's no need to go in depth. So correlation method. Correlation refers to analyze how change in one variable causes change in another variable. So previously we did a kind of experiment, and this is where we would observe how we brought a change in one variable and it brought a change in another variable. Therefore, we can say that this method investigates the covariability between two variables of study. If change in one variable leads to change in another, then we can suggest that some degree of correlation exists between these two variables. The correlation value is measured in terms of correlation coefficient R. So, where the correlation value is unknown, we would use R. In case we know the value, R would equal the value of correlation coefficient can vary from +1 to -1. So in case we already know the correlation value, then we would write R is equal to +1 or R is equal to -1. The value of +1 represents a perfect positive correlation, -1 represents a perfect negative correlation. Whereas R is equal to 0 can also be there, and it represents that there is zero correlation, no correlation at all. Now you could be thinking that these are somewhat same, but in correlation methods we would explore a different kind of situation. Let's say there is this experimental room, right, where two people are kept, A and B. Here A has a table, here B has a table, right? They also have a TV here, they also have a bookshelf right here. See, now let's say we from outside, or the experimentators from outside, instruct variable A or instruct person B to go and watch TV. So he will go and obviously A and B have different kinds of mentality. They have come from different kinds of environment, and they have different kinds of thinking, right? So the scientist or the invigilators instruct person A, to go and watch TV. So he starts watching TV. Maybe the person B is not interested in watching TV, right? He wants to just sit idly without any stress, without any tension, because he might have come from a very stressful environment. So he just wants to take a chill, sit on the table and relax, right? So person A watches TV for the first day. For the first day, he has been watching TV for many hours, several hours. On the second day, then A again starts watching TV. On the third day again, then fourth day again, and it may happen then on the fifth, sixth or seventh day, even the person B becomes interested in watching TV, and then he gathers A, and then they both sit down here and start watching TV, right? So this brings a correlation. So there can only be three types of correlation, as we already know. It cannot be that B watches a little bit of TV and then he goes back to his work, and then he again watches just 2 or 3 minutes of TV and goes back to his work. Either he will completely start watching TV, or he will completely lose it. He won't watch TV at all. This is actually in our mentality. You may actually in reality watch just 2 or 3 minutes of TV, but what we read is what is happening inside your brain. Does your brain actually become completely interested in watching TV? Brain is not like it becomes partially interested in watching TV. When it is watching TV, either it is completely interested or it is completely not interested, right? Only these two situations can happen. That is, there can be either a perfect correlation or no correlation at all, or negative correlation. So in this case, there is a +1 correlation. That is, a perfect positive correlation. It means that A has perfectly influenced B in the same thing that A was doing. Now let's take a second situation. In this second situation, the invigilators instruct B to go and take some books from here and start studying. So on the first day, and the TV is off. Let's say the TV is off and the TV is shut off and nobody is allowed to watch the TV. So on the first day, B starts reading books. A is not interested at all. The second day, third day, fourth day, A continuously watches B reading books, and suddenly on sixth, seventh day, he starts becoming interesting, curious. What is so good about these books that B is reading these books day by day, every day? He's very curious to know. He starts picking up a book, he starts reading a book, and slowly he also starts reading book. Now A and B both are reading books. Then again, this is a perfect correlation here. Now let's suppose a third situation happens. In this situation, A is allowed to watch TV, B is allowed to read books or watch TV, whatever his mind suits, whatever he prefers. See, so A goes off and starts watching TV. B goes off and starts reading a book. So B gets annoyed by the TV noises and by the way A reacts to certain moments in the matches or in whatever show he's watching. And B here is reading his book. He's not able to read his book, or maybe he just doesn't like the way A is behaving. Maybe B thinks that why the hell A is wasting his time in watching TV? Why not read books like me and develop his brain? So on maybe 2, 3, 4 days he can just take it as it is. But on the 5th or 6th day or sometime later in time, he would get agitated and frustrated, and they would start having fights. A might be frustrated. Why the hell is B reading books? What is he trying to show off? Why isn't he just sitting here? He's simply watching TV when we can. What the hell is he trying to show off in front of me? B may get frustrated. Why the hell is he watching TV, wasting his time why is he wasting time? Why is he just doing nonsensical things? Why not come here and develop his brain? And why the hell is he noise so up? And why is he making such gestures? And why is he so excited? And similar things like right there. So after some days, they may start fighting with each other. In this case, there is a negative correlation, a perfect negative correlation. But if a situation happens where A is simply watching his TV, he doesn't bother with B. B is simply reading his books, he doesn't bother with A. In this situation, the R is equal to 0. In the first and second situations, R was equal to +1. Right? R was equal to +1. In the third situation, R was equal to -1. In this last situation, R is equal to 0. This is what was correlation method. And the third is observation method. It involves studying a phenomena by observing it. The researchers simply make systematic observation of the event or behavior in its natural environment. After making observation for a number of times, researcher attempts to seek the reasons behind it. This is the most basic kind of method. This is the observation method. So suppose you face some psychological problems in a particular environment, then researcher comes to your home, or the researcher puts cameras all around your house, and he starts monitoring your day-to-day behavior and what you are doing, how you behave with certain entities, certain objects, how you behave with people around you. And then he observes you and observes you and observes you, and after a lot of observation, he finally finds out the reason why you behave like this. What is the reason behind your behind a recent change of behavior, or what causes agitation to you? What is the agitating factor? What is the inflaming factor in your life? Right? This is the most basic observation method. Now the applications of psychology. The applications of psychology and social cultural processes underlying behavior. This we will do in the next video, because this video has become a very longer one. Right? So we'll discuss everything else in the next video. Till then, tune up.